Don't worry, no reboots required. This is the 8th episode of the Kernel by Obsidian Systems, and in this episode we're joined by Karl and Calwyn, where we're going to be talking about everything you need to know about enterprise, how it's evolving over the next 5 years, and the impact of AI. I'm going to start with you, Calwyn. I want you to tell us a little bit about what got you into open source in the first place. Like, why?
That's a long story. Look, I started out in this industry in 1999, doing desktop support and pulling network cable for a living. Eventually ended up working for a company doing Microsoft deployments, support, etc. And I worked with a guy. Yes, it was a dark time, right? I worked with a guy there called Andre van Sale, he was a Linux guy, BSD guy, and I just watched him do stuff, and it kind of captured my imagination. Asked him to teach me, and I'm forever grateful for his input into that. And that started my journey, and here I am, 20 some odd years later, having done open source for more than 20 years now.
So why do you love it?
Because it's fun. It's interesting. You can do whatever you want, basically. I think with one of my issues with Microsoft stuff and the closed source software is a lot of guardrails, and yes, that's all good and well if that's what you want, but there's not a lot of freedom. And I love being able to just play around and try different things. I also think the barrier to being able to try things and test things are not there like it is with closed source software. You often need licenses and all that kind of stuff to actually even just try the software, which is a pain in the butt. It really, really, really is.
Yeah, so it's actually almost like you get to play around with the magic of tech, right?
Yeah.
And for yourself, what do you love about open source?
I love that I can just give it to my friend and there's no consequences. I can get it from the internet, I can download it, I can modify it, I can change it, I can see how it works, and I can give it to my friend and it's okay, right? It's okay. And the cool thing is that I think that with that being open, we can all contribute and we can all make it better. And that is it. And the way that I receive it of the internet, I get entitled with a certain set of rights, and I can share those rights with him, and he's got the same rights, and that is cool. That's the cool thing.
Yeah. And I mean, with that in mind, obviously, all of this adaptation and experimentation has resulted in the tech that's being used for the enterprise has evolved considerably, hasn't it? It's changed its shape and its ability and capability. And now we're standing at the cusp of massive change, as we all know, with AI and automation and all the other technologies. How do you guys see the future of enterprise tech changing over the next 5 years? What are some of the big things you're seeing across both open source and all of these different kind of technologies and solutions?
Look, I think let me start off by saying I don't think AI would have been possible without open source.
Oh, really?
I don't think we would be anywhere near where we are without open source. I just don't see it. The problem with closed source is that that software just moves too slowly. There's not enough people involved, etc. So, if AI destroys the world one day, we can blame open source. But if it saves the world one day, we can also blame open source.
So it's like, is it like the collaborative engagement, like where people challenge each other and someone builds on top of what somebody else has done and they keep reimagining and reinventing? And that's what's created this, where we are now.
I think if you look at like GitHub, which is like the biggest collection of open source projects, you would just lose an agent on that thing to train on all the different languages that's available there, and that's how it became what it is today. That's why it's such a great coding assistant, and that's why people would say, programmers are dead, blah blah blah, right? But even AI can write buggy code, right?
Well, that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
You need to still have humans constantly in the mix to make sure that the code testing, making sure there's no bugs, making sure that the same problem isn't constantly iterated, right?
That's like maybe you can compare AI to a microwave dinner, right, or something like that. Because it's there, it's quick, it's easy, it's in the microwave. You taste, it's like, ooh, I think this needs salt. This needs a bit more spice. Maybe we should just chuck it out. Let's just do it from scratch. What do you think of that?
Sometimes, if we're comparing it to an AI dinner, it goes and inserts wood into it.
Yeah.
I've had
It's like, but that's the chopsticks, girl.
yeah. I've had
Putting the wrong
experiences-
thing in the microwave.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe-
Nobody loves it.
maybe
I
it's
love
all about the
microwave
prompt,
sushi, right? So,
Well, maybe it's about the prompt.
okay, go ahead.
I think the thing is, I've used AI as an assistant before in building automation code, etc. I've often had experiences where it makes stuff up. It looks good. You get this beautiful kind of code, and you're like, wow, awesome. And then you start working through it. You're like, but that doesn't exist. That doesn't exist. But it's great for scaffolding, and I think it's getting better and better and better. Yeah.
And then you interrogate it, and then you're, oh, you sure about this? Yeah, you're right. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. You're like, yeah, but this is running a production. This is our transaction system. Yeah, but and then the disclaimer at the bottom of the prompt, like, yeah, I'm sorry, I can make mistakes. It's like,
Yes.
yeah, okay,
Yeah,
cool.
apparently quite a few.
Well, like you're like a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
But
You're like,
bringing
yeah.
that back to like the enterprise,
Yes.
right? So taking all of this into consideration, where are we going over the next 5 years? What is the trajectory? What do you predict?
I think it's hard to predict where we'll be in 5 years. And like we mentioned before, we basically said 5 years ago we had COVID, yay, but then we didn't have AI to the
We
same
were supposed
extent.
to have flying cars in 2015.
Yeah, but according to the Jetsons, right, they also had like animated robot maids.
And Back to the Future, don't
Yeah.
forget.
Yeah, flying cars, pump up sports shoe manufacturers with check marks on them, right?
Look, I think at least over the short term, the next year or two, in my view, we're going to see I think we're going to see people building things quicker because of AI. I mean, that certainly helped us to build things a lot quicker. We've been able to prototype, scaffold things out in minutes sometimes, in just a handful of hours, stuff that used to take days in the past. Is it going to continue that way? Is AI going to take people's jobs? I think that's kind of the fear that a lot of people have. Oh, I'm going to lose my job because Skynet's coming for my job.
And what about that hot take about AI being bad for the environment?
Well, yeah, AI is bad for the environment because the data centers or the AI data centers that these models run and consume
So much power.
hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of megawatts.
But they also
worth
said
of
that
power.
about Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin's going to
Sure.
change because of the electricity usage. Like, okay, how many people are running AI workloads? Okay, there's a lot more AI workloads out
Yeah.
there.
There's a lot, yeah.
But at least again, I think over the next year or two, it's going to help. And I think in a South African or African context, it's going to help us to perhaps innovate a lot faster than we used to innovate, especially in the code space. I don't know about it taking people's jobs here so much. I think my greatest fear is that you would slow down the pipeline of new guys coming in, new people coming in, where a company might feel, well, some senior guy with an AI agent, it can do the job of 5 juniors. I think that's a scary thing for me, not only because more jobs aren't being created, but because someday that senior guy's going to age out and he's going to retire. And
Where does that knowledge go?
Yeah, if we don't have this pipeline of people coming in, and I think that's a challenge for business, for the enterprise, is making sure that you still got this pipeline of younger people that still need to learn, still need to gain experience. And I'm hoping they don't get replaced or don't even get an opportunity. I think the IT industry in South Africa is already difficult to break into. And I think that's one of my biggest worries about that this is going to make it more difficult to break into, especially in the software space, automation space, those kinds of things.
But it could also help young and up-and-coming engineers to bridge that little gap, to give them a little bit of advantage to get going.
Sure.
But I think what we've also seen is with maybe interns and younger engineers is that they don't have the context of enterprise. So they come in and they like expect things to work in a specific way, but because you don't have like this is like institutional knowledge or experience, you might not actually know how a computer functions because you weren't there with the birth of computers or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think in 5 years' time, the enterprise might just have more credit card debt because of all the agents that people are paying for on their corporate credit cards. But I think that people will have a more concise way of saying like, this is how we're going to engage in the enterprise with these agents. This is how we're going to deal with data. This is how we're going to deal with coding. This is our practices. And I think it's going to be a bit more or less than, I don't, it's like nobody freaked out that Clip It in Microsoft Word is going to start writing my office documents, PAs, or think of the past. Nobody did that.
But Gemini is writing people's office
It
stuff.
is writing people's office stuff. You know, sorry, something you just said now actually, and also just sort of tailing onto what you said, made me take us all the way back to the beginning of our conversation, which was talking about the freshness of multiple viewpoints creating the originality of AI and solutions. Yeah. With the scenario that you've just described, are we not risking the loss of that? Because if you've only got one guy working with his AI agents, he's got no one to brainstorm with, there's no pinging ideas off, and working within a group in isolation is obviously often what is very limiting, right?
I think if you start looking at how does the human race stimulate conversation, I think there's different opinions and ways of asking questions. And I think AI will probably be trained on the way, this inference. I'm asking a question this way. This means I approach problems, I am more left brain or right brain. And I think this will help people. And I think with the way that AI agents are built for companies is that will probably be a bit more holistic and a bit more well-rounded to encourage people to think more. Right, if people can already determine, we might go a bit dark, but when I know that Sam Altman in the last 2 weeks condemned the whole people that are talking about suicide via AI and like how do I do X, Y, Z to myself, that becomes a very controversial way, and they can already detect like, yeah, listen, you should probably seek help, you should probably do this, you should probably do this, and I think. The same way AI will probably try and nudge people into different directions to start in expanding their view thoughts, but that's only if you would allow it, if you would be open to it. So I understand where you're coming from, where you're saying like if you have people that's only going to train it in a specific way, it will only have a specific one view, it will be two-dimensional. But I think because it has the entire body of knowledge of like humankind, right, we all had access to that kind of knowledge in some form, and that yet we have diverse opinions on how we get to certain answers. And I think that if you're not close to the way of thinking, you would still be open to the way of problem
that's
solving.
interesting. I mean, I do challenge you on that a bit because, like, if you look at diversity inclusion, right, and the way they're driving to have more women in tech, right, and more people from different cultures and different backgrounds, that has statistically proven to deliver better results. Like in the business. Businesses that do that are more profitable. So if you've got an AI trained by, and let's face it, ChatGPT is primarily trained on American data. It has a very specific cultural slant. If we work within that system, then you're getting, that is being pushed through. That bias, that approach, that technology, that sentiment is being driven through to everybody who relies on it. Now, that doesn't mean the code that your developer guy, your theoretical developer person is using ChatGPT, obviously. But what I'm saying is that particular kind of risk not endemic? And how could you avoid that if not?
Well, I think just to answer that, but also to jump off from what you asked before, at what point does the internet and code on GitHub become more AI than human? And then you're going to have AI weighing in on what other AI said. And again, at what point does the internet just become a bunch of AI agents screaming at each other?
Reddit's going to change.
And arguing about code or whatever the case may be. Does that mean we've lost diversity of thought and opinion? I think so.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I've read and seen several experiments where you iterate the same kind of questions and data through an AI multiple times, and after 5 or 6 iterations, just becomes gibberish. Basically, it becomes unintelligible. You know, so there has to be constant human input. Now, do we get past that at some point? Do these models become smart enough to avoid that? I don't know. Again, it goes. What does this look like in 5 years? You know, according to Back to the Future in the 80s, we're supposed to be in flying cars. Like I said, by 2015, we can make lots of guesses about what the future looks like, but there seems to, at least from my perspective, seems to be this. There's 2 clear or distinct paths in my mind. Right now, a lot of people are using AI to do a lot of amazing things and to be more productive and to be more useful and create cool things all the time. But there's maybe more, or at least an equal number of people that are using AI for nefarious purposes, bad things, writing keyloggers and all that kind of stuff.
SQL injection.
You know, SQL injection. People have, you know, we were talking with one of our colleagues earlier about, you know, prompt engineering and prompt injection into AI and getting AI to break its own rules to get it to do things. There's people doing that. At what point does one win over the other, or do we always have, you know? And the problem is, I don't know. It's both scary and exciting at the same time. It's terrifying and amazing and exciting at the same time.
I think can I tack on? I just want to continue our diversity of thought statement on AI. I think we have a big problem that sometimes when we ask questions to the wrong people who might not agree about how we see things, that people can tend to either get militaristic or shoot you or whatever. But I think the thing that we have to also remember is that AI doesn't judge you for how you speak. If English is your first language or your second language, right? It doesn't question the way that you're asking a question. It's there as a portal to the information. So how I've used AI for personal journaling as well, and then in my prompt I would say, as XYZ with this ideology or this way of thinking, how would I approach this problem based on this thinking and so on, and it will give me an answer based on that specific framework that I've just given it. So it's a tool that you can engineer the way that you would think, and because it kind of gives you a neutral answer, it can go any way, right? Because I'm sure that the way that those things are trained aren't necessarily built with specific ideology. Also depends on what kind of training data you use, right? And who builds your AI and what social network builds your AI will have the kind of influence that it has. But I think when we think of diversity of thought and the way that we build code and software for enterprise, you know, we have to judge code based on the quality that comes out, right? And it doesn't matter who made the code, right? We have to judge the quality because this code runs an enterprise and it manages people's information, and it looks at what kind of, is it transaction, is it secure, is it end-to-end encrypted, is the code good, right? And then I think that I reference this always back to the old days of open source, right? We used to have a lot, I think in the old days of open source, we used to have a very diverse community. And you never knew anything about those people because they didn't have a social media profile. You just saw this code chunk coming in from a specific email address, and you would know, cool, this guy or person, like lady, whoever contributed the code, and it's great. Right, but it's from this email address. I don't know where it came from, but it's good. And usually when somebody else from that email address, okay, this is trash. Usually this is not, we can't merge this, right? But this is usually good. And that's how you would measure quality, is about the quality of the contribution that you made. And I think that's beautiful because of this part of discourse that we're in the current age. It's like everybody's entitled to opinion, right?
Yeah.
And you should be held accountable if your opinion's dumb, and you should be questioned if you're right. If your opinion's dumb, we should say like, hey, that's a dumb opinion, but have you considered this, right? But we should have like a level playing field when it comes to discourse and the ability to contribute information and get information out. I think that's it, right? And now with AI in there, it's almost like a third type of entity that can quality check our opinions, right? In a quick way. Let me Google that, or let me chat GPT that, or whatever, right?
Yeah,
what do you think? What?
I don't know, just something that was said earlier, and just thinking about, new people coming up and learning and growing. And you saying that AI doesn't judge you. I think maybe it's going to be great for the young people coming up, because they can ask Gemini or ChatGPT or Claude or whatever a question, and they're not going to have some old dev saying, that's a dumb question. Didn't they teach you?
Didn't you read the manual?
Didn't you read the manual? Then it's just going to say, oh yeah, that's a great question.
It's like, or you can say even with that old Dave that comes in and says like, punches you in the ribs. It's like, yeah, I've showed you this 1,000 times. AI doesn't care.
Yeah,
They just say that you just use more tokens.
Yeah,
the company's smiling. It's like, yeah. Or you can ask, because I've had this thing where I can't explain anything to my kids because I'm not that well adapted. So I'm like, yeah, can we explain this in a different way? Can you explain it to me in a different way? Can you use different examples of explaining something? Can we do it with this as the context? And it's so smart because it just instantly says, okay, let's try and approach it from this side. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Oh, I see. And then you learn on how to like approach the problem in a different way. And that is also diversity of thought.
Yeah, so we've got a really good balance here where actually I feel when it comes to every AI conversation, we're sitting almost on a balance between very bad and very good. There's lots of risks and there are lots of positives, right? So it's significantly less violent, it seems, than original devs where you got punched in the ribs a lot when you made mistakes.
Because that's an HR incident, right?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't back then, was it?
Hey,
back then it was
put on
training.
my cigarette. Let me show you.
Well, exactly. So I think that leads me very neatly actually to my next question, which is what are some of the common misconceptions and comments around AI that you guys feel are actually kind of not dangerous but are risky? Like, what are some of the misconceptions that need to be addressed so that enterprises as a whole can actually benefit from the technology in a sustainable way, in a relevant way?
I will quickly take that, and then you can daisy chain onto that. I think the big misconception is that, hey, the free version of the AI is the same as the enterprise version of the AI. So let me put my work stuff into the free email and the free stuff, and then see how that. That's a bad idea because you don't know what's the idea, or like what's the rules around this information. So that is like a common misconception that AI is AI, right?
Let me just copy paste this whole code block with the API key. Nothing bad will happen.
Oh, yes. And the registered trademark right at the top. Ownership of XYZ, right? That's usually a bad thing. So if there's anybody considering like AI in the enterprise, go for the enterprise version. There's a lot more tools and restrictions around that on how information gets managed.
You're playing in a walled garden, basically.
Well, with the paid-for version,
Yes, that's what I mean. Like in the paid-for version,
Yes,
it's like a walled garden where you can do what you want, but
your data is not used to train
other
a security
systems.
estate.
You kind of start training your own model. I mean, like another one of our colleagues was saying yesterday that she, our COO, in fact, that her ChatGPT sounds a little bit like her.
That's a bad
paid for. Yeah, she's kind of feisty, right? She's kind of feisty.
So she's got like an argumentative GPT.
Just don't give that thing access to email. A lot of people get fired, right?
She's feisty, and her ChatGPT had her interactions with ChatGPT have made it feisty. But again, we use that paid.
The paid walled garden,
yeah, exactly. So it kind of learns your personality a little bit and feeds back. Yeah, to your question, I think one of my I don't know if it's a concern or what, but I would hope that people would see AI as a tool and not a replacement for humans.
Yeah.
I don't think we should ever see it as a replacement of humans. And again, we've heard Sam Altman saying that, the other day there was a post on X where he said that AI is going to replace all of us. All humans one day. And I'm like, I don't
inside.
Yeah,
I don't
so
look
relevant.
forward to a future like that.
No.
Because it's going to be inherently less interesting.
Yeah.
So I would hope that we continue and that business continues to see AI as a tool, a smart tool, a tool that can enable some really awesome stuff, but a tool nonetheless, and should never replace humans. That's my hope for it, actually.
I really agree with that. I really do. Because I don't know why the future would want to be the Matrix, to be honest.
Well, before we started, we had the...
Hey, you can do cool moves in the Matrix, right?
Before we started, we were talking about Star Trek, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
What I want is Star Trek AI.
Yes.
Not
please.
HAL 9000 AI.
Yes, please. So we want Majel Barrett, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Great.
I like the way you're thinking, Karl.
Yeah, not hell, please.
Not hell. We just don't
or
want to go.
not Sky.
Hell,
or something
no.
like that.
Yeah, we are. I feel like we're sitting at the point where the decisions we're making today, and on a more serious note, certainly in terms of the ethical guardrails and the parameters we're putting in place, not only as the creators of AI solutions, but also in terms of the organizations that use it. This is potentially shaping which direction we move in, right?
Sure.
So we need to be driven by people, not profit, I think. To a certain extent, profit's always relevant, but...
Well, you need to feed the people, right? But
You do.
But yes, I think the big thing that we have to also remember is that AI isn't our saviors,
No.
right? Because you can buy I remember when we used to have lots of conversations about pieces of technology or methodologies, or people go to the golf courses, they're like, I want to buy the DevOps, right? Or I want to buy the waterfall. I want to buy this kind of methodology, right? And you don't have to go and buy the AI, right? It's about the people in the organization and ultimately how they collaborate and how they build the company, right? The difficult donkey work is now going to get taken care of with the AI. Make sure that you do that and start focusing on the real things, right?
Yeah. So now this is my last question to you guys, okay? And I'd love to hear both of your point of views. But if there's one thing that you would implement to change or inspire change in the technology ecosystem in Africa, what would it be? No pressure.
Okay, I'll say like
Yeah.
clear, unrestricted access to the internet. Pure internet by service providers with clear access, right?
Amazing.
That's the one thing. The other thing is free access to information and software, right? So obviously we have a strong open source background, right? And we're working with projects on enabling access to open source to schools and things like that. And that's my history. I started my career basically giving open source on the continent to schools. But having clear access to the internet, unrestricted access to the internet, putting software in people's hands, and because the internet's the place of learning these days. So I want to know how to do X, Y, Z. I go onto YouTube or Udemy or Code Academy or any of these free training programs. I can sign up for a Python course. I can sign up for something, and I have access to that information. But if it's guardrailed and I'm only allowed to have 100 megs a day, what's that all about, right? So free internet for the country is a great way of connecting people. Now, is there going to be bad things? Yes, but I think the good out of that is going to be a lot more than what the bad things are. I don't know what you think.
No, I agree. I also think I'd like to add, and it's closely related to that, is that Africa should do more for itself.
That's all. Thank you. More information there, right?
It's one thing to have the hyperscalers coming in here, the Googles, the AWSs, etc., etc. And I think right at the beginning we spoke a little bit about how we can use AI to innovate, but we don't control it. It's controlled by the United States, by Europe, by China. And as much as there may be political opinions on either side, or the US has got our interests at heart, or China's got our interests at heart. Why would they? Their interest is themselves.
Yes.
We need to do more for ourselves. We need to, and I don't think it's only in the AI space. It's in every part of what we do. We need to do more for ourselves and not rely so much on other countries doing things and having that control.
I think that's where open source is powerful, right? Because you can see how it's built, you can do it, you can make it modified and make it useful in your use case.
I think a really amazing example of that is in the fintech sector in this country, and in fact on the continent. We're doing things here in South Africa that they don't even do in the States, in many first world countries. I mean, my brother-in-law's family, they live in Canada. They still write checks.
Yes, what
Come
is
on,
that?
guy. Like,
Yeah.
it's we gave that up a good few years ago already. And even when we gave that up, they weren't really used. You look at the rise of, mobile money with things like M-Pesa and all that kind of stuff all across the continent, enabling banking on feature phones.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean,
right?
that's stuff that a lot of first world countries are actually just only dreaming of. So it's one of the reasons I have family that have immigrated, because they worked in the fintech space, and American banks, Canadian banks are looking for people that know how to do this, because they're looking at us and like, wow, this is amazing. We did it in that sector. Why can't we do it
Everywhere else.
everywhere else?
No, you're absolutely right. Well, thank you both so much. I feel like that was an amazing conversation, like really deep. So thank you
Thank
both.
you.
It was
Thank you.
amazing.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks.